All right, so today we are doing a training on working with LGBTQ plus children and youth, specifically with youth in foster care. So we will start with a little video.
My son told me he kept who he was a secret for years. I wish I had known what he wanted to say.
A student told me at a pretty young age that they didn't want to be referred to as either he or she. I had to practice using different words for them.
When she was a young adult and told me that she had feelings for another girl, she said she always knew this, but was afraid to talk about it. I love her so much.
At first, she was holding hands with her friend because that's what young girls do. Then she was bullied for it, and I didn't understand what was happening. I wish I'd known more.
These are the voices of adults who care about young people who identify as LGBTQ. LGBTQ stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer questioning. Youth who identify as any of these orientations or statuses are at significantly increased risk for mental health problems, bullying and other violence, homelessness, substance use disorder, and even suicidal thoughts or behaviors. Because of the vulnerability of LGBTQ youth, it's critical for adults to be mindful of ways to better listen to the voices of these young people. Keep a few simple ideas in mind. Developmental stages. Friendships form in childhood, and romantic attractions in others can begin in adolescence. For adolescents, a desire for friendship or a closer connection with another person is normal. Pay attention to how and when the young people in your life express their romantic attention to others. How they want to express themselves at this point in their lives may include their identity as LGBTQ. Cultural influences. People receive messages from friends, family, their communities, and the media about what is acceptable. Negative messages about LGBTQ identity can be a significant reason that talking about their personal lives can be so hard. Being open to who they are and who they want to be can be the most difficult experience of their young lives. Identity and pronouns. LGBTQ youth may choose their own pronouns because of their feelings about the intersection between culture and gender. Many have chosen to use non-gendered pronouns, such as they or their, in order to avoid using gender identifiers, she, her, or he, him. Their choices should be respected and practiced by others, as it is a language shift that is important to a young person. Biology. LGBTQ youth will often discuss how their biological influences affect who they are attracted to and how they want to live their lives. These influences impact decisions about friendships, partners, social circles, clothes, and where and how they want to live their lives as adults. All of these factors are dealt with carefully and cautiously. Biology plays an important role for a person who may identify as LGBTQ. Parents, teachers, coaches, clergy, community leaders, and other adults have the opportunity to listen to LGBTQ youth. Children and adolescents often express themselves according to the expectations of their home communities and cultures. The hope for all is supportive, caring, non-judgmental environment. LGBTQ youth, who are at increased risk for mental health and other problems, can be offered confidence, safety, and security in who they are and how they express themselves by a trusted adult who is willing to listen to them. True listening means there is always help, and there is always hope.
Okay, so that's just a brief little video that I wanted to show. So LGBTQ is a very complex, multiple layers system. So we're just going to briefly touch on some of the key points, things to keep in mind. And if you have questions or if a youth may be placed with you who is LGBTQ+, feel free to reach out. I'll provide you guys with some resources at the end as well, but we'll just touch on kind of the base level of this. So I just wanted to start you guys off with a quote. So it says, without safe foster care placements and without the vital support of caseworkers and other child welfare professionals, LGBTQ youth often flee abuse in foster care only to face homelessness and sexual exploitation. So that just keep that in mind, specifically because we will be talking about youth in foster care. So just something to keep in mind. So our first slide is going to be just some facts about LGBTQ plus youth. So the first one is that studies show that 30% of youth in foster care identify as LGBTQ plus and 5% identify as transgender. LGBTQ youth of color reportedly stay in care longer in child welfare systems and experience increased violence and discrimination while they are in these welfare systems. 13% of LGBTQ plus youth report being treated poorly by foster care systems compared to the 6% of non-LGBTQ plus youth in foster care. And lastly, studies show that 78% of LGBTQ plus youth were removed or ran away from their foster home due to hostilities that they face. So whether that's not feeling accepted by their foster parents, whether being talked down to, being derogatory terms used towards them, just some things that they felt hostile towards. All right, so just some terms that we should know going forward. So gender expression. So this is the external manifestation of gender expressed through such things as names, pronouns, clothing, haircuts, behavior, voice, and body characteristics. The next one is gender identity. So this is an internal, deeply held sense of gender. Some people identify with the gender that they were assigned, while others identify with a different gender, or some identify not at all. So some examples of gender identity is agender, which means that the person does not have a particular gender. Cisgender, which the person's gender aligns with their sex. So if they were born a male, they identify as a male, born a female, identify a female. Another popular one is non-binary. So that's when they're not only male or female, they're both, neither, or an alternative. And then encompassed in this is also trans woman, trans man, which is considered a gender identity. The next one is sex assigned at birth. So with that, it's the sex that you're assigned at birth, whether that's male or female. This is based off of the genitalia that you have. And the last term is sexual orientation. So that's the desire one has for emotional, romantic, and or sexual relationships. So for that, some people consider themselves asexual. So that's a low or absent sexual drive. So they're not necessarily interested in sex, but more the emotional connection. There's queer, gay, pansexual, which is attracted to people of all genders. There's not a specific gender that they're attracted to. All right. So on our next one, this is just a nice little picture that I enjoy and I find it easy to understand. So it's the gender unicorn. So the rainbowed area that he's thinking about is the gender identity. So the green is the gender expression, how they look on the outside. The little chromosome is the sex assigned at birth, and then the hearts are what they're physically and emotionally attracted to. So kind of an easy diagram to follow. It's also very beneficial for children as well to kind of understand the different layers of gender. All right, so some more language that we're going to use. So since this training is LGBTQ+, I want you guys to have an understanding of what those letters mean. So our first one is lesbian, which is a female who's attracted to another female. We have gay, which is a male attractive to another male. Bisexual, which is an individual that's attracted to their gender and other genders. Transgender, which one's gender is different than the gender assigned at birth. So that can be either trans male or trans female. Queer and questioning. So queer is sexual orientation outside of the norms. It does not solely fall in female or male gender categories. And questioning is someone who's trying to identify their sexual identity and sexual orientation. Intersex occurs when a person has varying sex traits, so they either have genitalia, gonadal, and or chromosomal outside of XY or XX combinations. So sometimes you can hear people being referred to as intersex if they were born with both genitalia, maybe one on the outside, one on the inside. So it could be a male who was born with a penis, but on the inside may have ovaries or something like that. Asexual is an individual with limited sexual desire. So as I mentioned before, they're not necessarily attracted to the sex of a person, more so the emotional connection. And then the plus indicates more possibilities outside of the heterosexual or straight, in addition to those listed previously. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of different words that this encompass. So the plus is to cover all those additional more specific terms that I talked about. So next, we're going to do some language etiquette. So language is an important thing in the LGBTQ community to be aware of what people would like to be identified as or what they would like to be called. So the first column is going to be stuff that we typically say and maybe some things that you can replace that with. So the first one is if you walk into a room and you say, you guys, you ladies, instead maybe say everyone, folks, y'all, more inclusive, so you're not assuming someone's gender and assuming they're male or female. The next one is, again, him, her, saying them. So if you are unsure if someone is a female, male, how they identify, what their pronouns are, they, them is a pronoun that can be utilized for somebody that you may not know their pronouns for. So again, a boy or a girl, child, kid, even at a young age, kids may be questioning their gender, their sexual orientation. So you always want to make sure that they feel included and not discriminated against. So just child, kid keeps it kind of simple. You're not assuming and you're not telling them based on their outward appearance how they should feel. For older, lady, guy, again, just a person or adult. Hello, sir or ma'am. I know this is a common one when you go to a grocery store or something. You say thank you, sir, thank you, ma'am. Instead, maybe just thank you, hello there, just so again, you're not assuming. All right, so our next slide, we're going to talk about some things that as foster parents or as just people in general, you can do. So speak to the youth that come into your care. So always ask how they want to be identified or referred to rather than assuming based on their external characteristics, mannerisms, or presentations. Monitor microaggressions. So microaggressions are dismissive insults that are inflicted on minorities by non-minorities. It's a casual degrading of a marginalized group. So oftentimes microaggressions are things that are said, but not necessarily to be taken in the wrong way, but to somebody who is in a marginalized group, it may be taken a wrong way. So for instance, in this case, some microaggressions may be based on their identity. So just saying that's so gay. I know kids say that all the time. Oh, that's so gay. She's so gay. He's so gay. Invalidation of how they're feeling. It's just a phase. You'll grow out of it. Those are all microaggressions. And if they have a chosen name, so we'll talk about this a little later, but there's something called a dead name. So let's say I was born Samantha and I decided to transition into a male and I changed my name to Stephen. My dead name would then be Samantha. So calling me by my dead name would be a microaggression. And then saying, but what was your real name? So acknowledging that they have a different name, but then asking, what's your real name? I know that's not your real name, is just a couple forms of microaggression. There's multiple, but just something to keep in mind when you are talking to youth. Next one is inclusion. So for this, being open and understanding, again, using the correct pronouns, eliminating gender norms, allowing self-expressions. These are not problems that need to be resolved. They're kids who need to be supported. So whether it's a male who wants to paint his fingernails, or if it's a girl who wants to play football, or a boy who wants to wear a dress, just all some things that are kind of outside the gender norm that we want to allow kids to express themselves. Also, inclusion when you're using language. So instead of brother and sister, maybe saying siblings, or if you're talking about a husband and wife, maybe a parent or a partner instead, just so you're again not identifying if you don't know. When referencing body parts also in a medical setting, instead of just saying, oh, he's a boy because he has a penis, or she's a girl because she menstruates, saying somebody with a penis or someone who menstruates, to separate the fact that yes, they might menstruate because they were born a female, but they don't necessarily identify with that. If you do not know someone's pronouns, it's best to ask what their pronouns are. It's becoming more common for people to put it in their emails, to introduce themselves with their pronouns. So never assuming, but always asking if you're unsure. And even if you are 99% confident that you know their pronouns, it never hurts to ask. Support. Again, for children and foster parents, there's plenty of resources for kids in our area on the local level as well as state level. So connecting them with maybe other kids, reaching out to other foster parents who may have a youth who is LGBTQ+, just keeping them connected. There's also things called ball scenes. So there are houses where youth and adults can go to. It's women or male who dress in the opposite gender clothing. So it's just a place for them to go. There's mothers and fathers and siblings and friends, and you become a part of a family that sometimes put on drag shows and things like that as well, but also do activities, bingo, movie nights, stuff like that. So just something to get kids involved and to make them feel supported and a part of the community. The biggest thing that I want to identify is continue to learn. So you guys are all here, maybe some of you because it's a mandatory training, but maybe others because you're genuinely want to learn and want to learn more information about the LGBTQ+ community. But either way, you guys are here, you're spending your Tuesday night with me when you could be doing a million other things. So you guys are taking that first step to become more knowledgeable about the topic. All right, so more things that you guys can do. So engage all LGBTQ+ youth with dignity, respect, and fairness. Again, just keeping them a part of the conversation, asking those questions, never assuming. Support the transgender youth effort to express their gender identity. Again, if it's a male that wants to wear a dress or wants to paint his nails, just being supportive of that and learning along the way to better support them. Use the least restrictive means when intervening in the lives of LGBTQ youth. So what that means is let them tell their story. So don't intervene and don't jump in assuming that you know their story, assuming that you know their pronouns, letting them be the ones to identify themselves and how to address them. Follow all the privacy protections. So again, it's their story to tell. So you shouldn't be going to friends, doctors, other professionals saying, this is how this person identifies. It's their story. Whoever they want to be notified of that, they will let them know. what not to do. So we talked about all the stuff that you can do. These are just some things that you shouldn't do. So using offensive slang terms. So some of those are dyke, homo, faggot, fag, all of those words, which we've heard before. However, we're trying to move away from those terms and identifying people as a trans male, a trans woman, a person who is gay, that type of stuff. Don't offer solutions. So if someone, in our case, if a youth comes to you and explains to you that they're exploring their sexual identity or exploring their sexual orientation, don't try to offer them solutions. Don't ask them if they want to go to therapy. Don't ask them if they're sure. Just support them and try not to be that person that tries to fix it, because again, it is not a problem. Don't talk about their story. As I mentioned before, it is their story to tell. You should not be the one going around talking about their story, whether that's their transition story, whether it's them exploring their sexuality. Let them be the one to notify the people that they want to notify. And I've said it a million times, and I'll probably say it a million more times during this training, but don't assume. Always ask, whether that's pronouns, sexual orientation, sexual gender. Always ask how a person would like to be identified instead of assuming. So although we talked about all the stuff that we shouldn't be doing, or at least trying our best to avoid, it is okay to make a mistake. We're all humans. Mistakes happen, things happen. If you do make a mistake, correct the mistake. If you called somebody by their dead name, if you identified them as the wrong pronoun, just correct it, apologize, and be genuine with your apology. Don't just be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Actually mean it. And move on. There's no need for you to explain why you did something, like, oh, I called you a he because you're dressed in male clothing. There's no need to explain why you called somebody something or why you didn't call somebody something. Just acknowledge that you made the mistake and move on. So this is just another short video. I swear this one is quicker than the first one, but it's just youth who have things that they want people to know while working with youth. I believe it's a British video, so if their accents are different, I'm sorry, and hopefully you can understand them.
Celebrate difference. Don't put my sexuality or gender identity on record without my consent.
Be accepting.
Don't out me to other professionals without my consent. That's not okay.
Don't assume my gender.
Don't assume every young person in care is straight.
Make info easily available to us.
Be proud.
My identity is not a disease or a mental health problem.
I'm not a mistake to be fixed.
Do help us to follow our interests.
Help me to go to groups.
Don't impose gender stereotypes on us.
Do challenge transphobia, homophobia, biphobia, and transphobic language if you hear it. Ask me questions.
Don't worry if you don't have all the answers.
Accept, adapt, achieve.
So I just wanted to show that video just so you guys can hear from youth what's important to them. I can inform you guys of all this information based off of my research, but it's a little different when you're hearing it from somebody who's a part of that community, who has been in the shoes of the youth that you guys may be working with or who may be placed in your home. So these are some resources that are statewide. Some are local resources as well, but All Children, All Families annual report, just kind of where I got some of the statistics. If you guys are interested, answers to question for a better understanding of sexual orientation, National Center for Child Welfare, resources for families of LGBTQ plus youth, and child's welfare information. I lied. These are actually the local resources. So this is GLIS, Western New York. That's a big one in Western New York. So it's just more youth support. They put on events as well to get kids involved in the community. Pride Center of Western New York, again, is just a local one. And then Buffalo Rising, resources and communities for the LGBTQ plus community. This is just a quote that I want to leave you guys with. So you don't have to know everything in the world. We aren't supposed to. It makes you boring in mixed company if you can't be interested and ask questions of other people. So if you guys take anything away from this training, I want you guys to take away that it's okay to ask questions and it's okay to continue to learn. Never assume. It's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to not know. But it's never okay to keep making that same mistake over and over again. So I'm gonna stop our recording. Maybe.